Good morning. Today we're going to be doing the quadratic formula. To do the quadratic formula, you must have the equation in standard form and be able to identify the a, b, and c value. Now, you have the formula written. I'm going to tell you the catchy rhyme to this just because it might help you remember it. Here's the sing-song rhyme, whatever you want to call it. X is equal to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, that's the formula you need to be able to use. So, we're going to try using this formula to solve these problems. So, our number one, we need to identify our a, b, and c value. Your a is 1, your b is 2, and your c is negative 63. All right, formula x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all divided by 2a. You are welcome to use Desmos to simplify the inside. I encourage you not to try to type all of this in at once, simply because if you are having an irrational solution, you won't be able to just type it in to get the exact answer. So, let me show you how to type it into Desmos to get part of it. All right, you have negative 2 on the outside, so what I'm typing in Desmos is just the inside of my radical, so I'm typing the radicand into Desmos. 2 squared minus 4 times a value times c value. And it gives me 256. All right, I do want to see now if I can use the square root of 256. Well, there we go. So I have negative 2 plus minus 16 over 2. This is two different formulas. My solutions is x equals to negative 2 plus 16 over 2 and negative 2 minus 16 over 2. Okay, this is negative 2 plus 16 is 14 over 2 and negative 18 over 2. So x is equal to 7 comma negative 9. There is my final solution. Doing the same thing for number 2. Going in and start writing the formula. Negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times my a times my c all divided by 2 times the a. Excuse me. So here you're going to have 11 plus or minus. I'm not going to do this one in Desmos just because I don't want to. There's really no other reason. But I have 121. All right, negative 24 times negative 10 is positive 240 over 12. This is 11 plus or minus the square root of 361 over 12. I believe that is 19, but I'm going to type that in Desmos just to make sure. Yep, plus or minus 19 over 12. And now I have my two cases. X is equal to 11. I'm going to put the minus first this time, again, for no other reason than because I can, which is equal to 8 over 12, which is equal to negative 2/3. The other one is 11 plus 19. I'm writing small because I am running out of room. This is 30 over 12, which is 5 over 2. So my final solution is x equals negative 2/3 and 5/2. Okay, let's go to number 4. You can move these over to either side you want. I'm going to do what I think would be easiest, and I'm going to move it to the right. So plus 2x squared and minus the 3x. So 0 equals 2x squared plus x minus 15. Okay? From here, I can use my formula. B squared minus 4 AC over 2a. So x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1. 4 times 2 is 8 times 15. So that's 120. So I have a negative 1. Okay, this is 121 inside the radical, so it's 11. All right. I have x is equal to negative 1 plus 11 over 4. And I have x is equal to negative 1 minus 11 over 4. Okay, for these problems, I'm going to simplify this. 10 over 4, which is 5/2. And this one is going to be negative 12 over 4, negative 3. X equals negative 3, comma, 5 over 2. If you were to want to type this into Desmos, okay, you can type this one in all at once. I don't suppose it'd hurt anything to try to check it that way before you try to simplify if you can't do it. But if you wanted to, I'm going to show you how. I'm going to type in my negative 1. For plus or minus, you're just choosing one of them to begin with. So I'm choosing the plus. Square root b squared minus 4 times my a value 2 times my c value negative 15 parentheses around it divided by 2 times my a value, which is again 2. I get 2.5, which is my 5/2. If I put the minus, I get my negative 3. So I'd be finished, okay? All right, I want you to try 3, 5, and 6. Okay, you should be finished. You're going to get x equals 1, x equals positive and negative 5 over 8. Just so I don't have to write it twice. And 0, 5/4. All right, I want to work this one out quickly just to show you some common sense. Sometimes you don't really want to put in this quadratic formula. Here's one of the examples. If I was to move this 10x to the other side, as so, this is where you would start using the quadratic formula, b being 10, then a8, c0. However, I want you to notice I have a GCF right here of just x. So I have x times, well, really, if you want to pull it out, and you can, I would advise you to, just make stuff a little bit easier for yourself. 2x would be the GCF, but I'd be left with 4x minus 5. This would just be solving 2x equals 0, 4x minus 5 equals 0, 4x equals 5, x is equal to 5/4. And 2 times 0 is 0, so x equals 0. If you write out the entire quadratic formula on this problem, I'm sure you found that what I did just now is a whole lot faster. You do not always have to use the quadratic formula, but at the same time, it is helpful in some situations. Use your better judgment to determine when you need to use it or when you can just factor simply. All right, let's move on to the next page. Got 6 more problems and we're done. Now, the top page, all of them were nice, good numbers. You could have just used Desmos. You cannot just use Desmos on these problems, okay? So, I'm going to look at 3 of these and let you try the other 3. I'll do 8, 9, and I'm seeing which one's harder. Give me a second. Really, I think they're about the same. I'll choose 12. All right. Number 8. You are welcome to keep using Desmos. I'm not going to. I personally am faster using it by hand. But again, if you're comfortable using Desmos, please continue to use it. Here we go. I'm going to move everything to one side. This time, I'm just going to move them 8x and the negative 1. So I have negative 2x squared minus 8x plus 18. Okay, formula equals 0. Formula, x is equal to negative b, so that's just 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 64, minus, I'm going to write this part just so you can see it, 4 times my a value times my c value, all over 2a, 2 times negative 2, negative 4. Okay? Let's simplify this radical. So I'm going to have 64 minus 4 minus 2 times 8, minus 4 times negative 2 times 18. Well, negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8 times 18 is 144. So I have 64 plus 144 over negative 4. What this is 8 plus or minus the square root of 208 over negative 4. Now you've run into a problem. Here's your problem. The square root of 208 cannot be factored into just a number. This is an irrational number. There is no perfect square of 208. However, I can split this into a perfect square. So if you go into Desmos, and I'll show you this part, and you divide by a perfect square from 208 to get your answer here. 208 divided by a perfect square is 16, that'll go into it, and I get 13. So this is 8 plus or minus the square root of 16 times the square root of 13 over negative 4. So 8 plus or minus the square root of 16 is the 4 times square root 13 over negative 4. We are almost finished with this problem. The last thing to do is to check for a GCF on top and then simplify if possible. Well, if I look on the numerator here, the GCF is 4 because 4 goes into both 8 and 4. So I'm going to pull out my 4 and I'm left with 2 plus or minus square root 13 over negative 4. I can simplify 4 divided by 4, which is 1, but I have a negative. So I have negative 2 plus minus square root 13. Just in case you're wondering, and you do not have to write this, but you could say this is negative parenthesis 2 plus minus square root 13. What I did was just distribute that negative to the 2 and said done. It doesn't really matter. They are the same thing. All right, I'm going to give you one more example, number 9. Okay. For number 9, I have to move the 4 over, excuse me, negative 8x squared, 7 minus 4 is 3, equals 0. This could be a place where your common sense comes into play, because it should, and I will work it that way secondly, but let's keep working from here. If I use the formula x is equal to negative b, that's negative 0, plus or minus the square root, b squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over my 2a. Well, this is plus minus because the 0 will disappear. Negative 4 times negative 8 is positive 32, times 3 is 96, over negative 16. I can do my 96 divided by 16 also, because 16 again is the perfect square. And I'm going to be left with plus or minus. Okay, if I'm using 16, the square root of 16 is 4. I'm just saving time. 4 square root of 6 over negative 16. Okay? From here, if I have 4 square root 6 over negative 16, I can do 4 divided by 16, simplifying. And I'm going to get 1 square root 6 over negative 4. Now I have a question for you. I have positive and negative here. Because of this positive and negative, I do not need that negative sign. So my final answer would be is x equals plus minus square root 6 over 4. That is my complete final answer. Way number 2. If I have negative 8x squared plus 3 is equal to 0. If I was to solve this by a different of squares. So, square root method. I would subtract the 3 over, divide by my -8. From here, I would have x squared is equal to 3/8, square root of both. X squared is equal to square root 3 over the square root of 8. Sorry, not x squared, just x. X is equal to the square root of 3 over, all right, square root of 8 is 4 times 2. So 2 square root 2. I would be happy with this answer. I am going to show you what's the same thing as what we have below, though. To get the radical out of the denominator, I have to multiply by the square root of 2 on top and bottom. Okay? This might look tricky. Let me do this in a different color. Hold on. This might look tricky, but it's actually simple math. Okay? Whenever I do this, the bottom square root 2, so the square roots are going to cancel. I'm left with 2 times 2. So I have 4 on the denominator. And on top, I have 3 times 2, which is square root of 6 over 2, which is the same, or I said 2 and wrote 4. 6 over 4, sorry. Which is the same answer as I have below, okay? I would do it in the red way, and I would have stopped at 2 square root 3 over 2 square root 2. But anyway, there's both methods. Whichever one you think would be simpler is the one you should use. Go ahead and try 7 and 8, and then I'll show you 12 and let you try number 11. When you're solving 7 and 8, you should get these answers. X is equal to 2 plus minus square root 13. X is equal to 5 plus minus square root 17. All right, number 11, number 12. These both have imaginary solutions, which is why I'm working one of these. Looking over this, I think 12 is easier, so I'm actually going to do number 11, okay? Let's do number 11. All right, I have it in standard form. Let's use my formula. X equals, I'm going to get rid of the Desmos, don't need it. Negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, from here, this is negative 8 plus minus square root of 64 minus, all right, 4 times 3 is 12, times 7 is 80, 84, over negative 6. All right, I want to point out, well, I'll leave it. I'll do it here in a second. I think it'll make more sense if I don't pull it out right now. So, x is equal to negative 8 plus minus square root. This is negative 20 inside my radical. Negative 20 I can break into the perfect square of 4 times 5. But I also have that negative, so I need to pull out that negative 1. Okay? So I have x is equal to negative 8. The square root of 4 is 2. Then I'm left with the square root of 5. The square root of negative 1 is my imaginary part I. over negative 6. I'm going to pull out my GCF. My GCF is a negative 2. I'm pulling out negative 2 because I want to get rid of that negative in front of the 8. So negative 2, 4 plus minus I square root 5 over negative 6. Negative 2 divided by negative 6 is a positive 1/3. And I'm left with 4 plus minus I square root 5 up top. And I'm completely finished with that problem. Number 12 is a little bit easier because you won't have to worry about keeping that radical and simplifying it. It is a perfect square when you work it out. Your answer for number 12, go ahead and work it, but I'm going to write the answer, is x equals 2 plus minus 4i divided by 5. I feel like that one might give you a little bit of trouble, so I'm going to go ahead and work it out very, and I do mean very quickly for you, but you can see how I get the answer. All right, putting in a standard form, I'm going to get 5x squared minus 4x plus 4, which means I'm going to have negative 4 plus minus square root of 16, that's negative 4 squared, minus 4ac, negative 4 times 5 times 4, which is negative 80, all divided by 2a, 2 times 5, 10. This is negative 4 plus minus the square root of 64 negative, all over 10. The square root of 64 is 8. I have that negative, so it's going to be 8i over 10. Pull out my GCF of 4. So I'm going to be left with, that's a negative, that should be negative, which means this is positive. Sorry about that. I'm going to pull out that 4 though. I'm going to be left with the 2 plus or minus 8i over 10. Simplifying 4 over 10, I'm going to get 2 over 5. Well, shoot far. I was trying to go too quick and jumped ahead. Whenever I pull out that 4, I'm going to be left with 1 plus minus 2i. I have that 2 over 5, which is 1 plus or minus 2i. And I'm going to redistribute this 2 to simplify. So I have 2 plus minus 4i over 5. There we go. You know, I got kind of jumbled up at the end, trying to go too quick, trying to combine steps. There's how you get the answer. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.